Welcome back, mutants. Streebo here with you from MVPMutantville.com. Wait for it. Means I'm starting my first beer for today. It's been a rather productive weekend so far. We've had MVP meetings. I've completed work on a lot of articles and updates. We've finalized our plans for our upcoming MVP promotion leading into the Fandom Fest in Kentucky, which if you haven't heard about that, we're definitely heading out that way next weekend. I wanted to do another vlog because I was so excited by watching Pacific Rim last week. It just got me into thinking about really creative, fantastic, imaginative movies. Because I think ultimately, in my experience, speaking for myself, of course, as it goes without saying, those are the kind of movies that have excited me the most over the years. So I'm always crestfallen or hurt when I get really excited by a movie like Pacific Rim, and then you see such a wide variety of reactions to it, like with Prometheus, where people just actively will hate that movie. And it just makes you question why you bother with fandom as a whole at all sometimes. But I just try to focus on the positive, try to remember what made me a fan, what brought me into the various genres that I enjoy, whether it be horror or science fiction or speculative fiction if you prefer, or superhero movies or fantasy. Then I started trying to think of how I would classify and title this particular vlog if I did this, and I thought I just wanted to call it like the top 10 creative movies ever made, or the most creative films ever made, or something along those lines. And they're just there's no there's no searching for it out there. There's no SEO to grab a hold of, so it's kind of like pointless because people aren't thinking about it in those terms, and they're really just thinking about kind of like genre classification. Yet that's one of the things that makes something like horror films so fun to me, is because they can have a wide variety of approaches to what is essentially the same genre, the genre of horror, where you could have something like Friday the 13th side by side with something like Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, or side by side with something like David Cronenberg's Videodrome. Just crazy things. But I don't know. I've got a whole stack of movies here. I lose direction sometimes when it's just me talking to the camera, and especially once I start drinking. But I'm done with the majority of my work for today. I have to do some editing stuff. I thought I was going to have to wash the cars for the family, but it looks like it's going to rain, so no point in doing that today. So I got out of that, so that's why you see me drinking a beer now. I've got a lot of movies here I wanted to show you guys, just to kind of share almost a chronological look at these fantastic works, whether you want to call them fantasy or science fiction or just imaginative works. I'm sure there's probably some kind of subgenre classification for them somewhere, but I don't know what it is yet. I don't know what to call it. But we'll start way back. Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. These movies, they made their way onto this list because of how they presented their world, or perhaps how they presented at least a character that was made to look like it was in our world, where we believed in it, in its existence. Whereas with these fantasy worlds, we want to be transported into those worlds and live in them for a while and walk around in them. It's not necessarily our world. The thing with Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, it just presents this nightmarish, surreal world, and it's one of the earliest fantasy and horror films. Very much a surrealist work. I'm going to have to gloss over a lot of these, but that would be my reason for singling out the majority of them is because of the world that they present. Again, with Metropolis, all because of the world that they present to us. You know, something heretofore unseen that they make seem so believable and realistic. Wizard of Oz, the witch and her minions, of course, everything in Oz in general, all the way up to the Emerald City. Jason and the Argonauts for being one of the first really cool updatings of the old Greek myths. You know, the effects in it are quaint today, but there you can still see a performance, you know, shining through the effects, and it gives it at least a weight that a lot of today's modern CGI glossy effects don't carry, because it doesn't look like a cartoon. So Kubrick's 2001 for daring to imagine our world in the future and possible contact with extraterrestrial life, whether it's our creators or what have you. Sometimes it's just the questions that are asked, but 2001 tried to do it. It was almost a combination of the fantasy approach with the hard science fiction. And that's an interesting genre. It's an interesting genre. I don't know what it's called, but something I want to look into a little bit more in the future, I suppose. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, one of the first really neat magical movies. Magical cats and talking animals, and there's walking suits of armor. You know, Harry Potter owes a lot to these kind of things. Star Wars, a whole entire different universe, alien races, a multiplicity of alien races, robots. Alien for realizing both the futuristic world, but also the xenomorph, you know, giving us a new predatory alien species, making it seem so believable. The same with John Carpenter's The Thing, you know, presenting us with this unbelievable creature running around in our world and showing it to us often in direct light and making us very much believe in its existence, and just the myriad of forms that it takes and shapes that it moves through. It's just a testament to the imagination. Good stuff. Clash of the Titans, the last of the great modern updates of the old Greek myths, with krakens and pegasi. I don't think there's any walking skeletons in this one, but it does have scorpions and Calabos and the gods above, all good stuff. Dark Crystal, still a masterpiece of puppetry, an entirely new world presented to us, entirely different fantasy. I don't know if that's based on a book or what, but it was such a realistic, not realistic, but just a complete world. I don't know. I need to watch the special features on that one, I guess. I'll hold up the DVD cover because I'm not sure if I like that one any more than the Blu-ray cover. Usually I prefer the DVD cover because the art on Blu-rays, as I've lamented in other Streeborama vlogs, has sadly deteriorated and devolved rather, over the past few years. I'm going to give a shout out to a little known off-lamented fantasy film known as Krull. Even though it's, you know, it's really just a combination of everything everything under the sun, both fantasy and kind of sci-fi. It's the only movie to ever give us a glaive, so I always enjoyed it because of that. Battle and Dreamscape, which I'm apparently woefully overdue for an updated copy of. I watch it on Netflix all the time, which is great, but I need to grab a Blu-ray of this now. Just for showing us, you know, the possibilities of a movie told inside a world of dreams, and what can come with that. Perhaps it owes a lot to Wes Craven's script for A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was making the studio rounds during that time when Dreamscape was first green lighted. But I don't want to promote any hearsay, so to speak. So another great Jim Henson work, Labyrinth. Highly underrated Dune, David Lynch's Dune. It's the first one that it didn't try to be Star Wars, I think. It was the first real science fiction story that didn't want to be Star Wars. It just wanted to be its own thing, and it's dark and disturbing and dirty and fantastic and wonderful all the way through. So I have not picked up the Blu-ray copy of this. I actually have some of the fan edits of this called Dune, the expanded version or whatever. It just has all the footage, ever shot for it, just put together. Well, not all the footage, but all the deleted scenes and the various versions all combined together in one. And it's a pretty crazy journey, but again, maybe not the most briskly of paced films, but I think there's just something to be said for a world that can take it, a movie that can take its time and present a world to us, a heretofore unseen, unlived in world, and make us, feel like we've been transported there for a while. Dune definitely does that. Get back into horror a little bit. From Beyond, Stuart Gordon's attempt to outthing The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. Just the simplest of H.P. Lovecraft stories expanded into full-length feature, which is probably the best way to do it. Crazy, grotesque creatures unleashed in that one. Clive Barker's Hellraiser. This is where kind of the S&M subculture made its way into horror by way of fantasy and devils and demons and puzzle boxes. Just the entire mythology presented in this one little movie. It's still fueling movies to today. I mean, we cannot go for too long without some kind of Hellraiser movie being made in some form or another. And there are comic books and the novel tie-ins and all this, that, and the other. Which, by the way, I'm still waiting for the Crimson Gospels, which is supposed to be Barker's ending for the Hellraiser saga, or at least for the Pinhead saga. So I'm eagerly waiting to see when that comes out. More Barker stuff. Nightbreed. Again, fantastic creatures. Still to this day, I mean, lamenting the fact that we don't yet have the Cabal version on Blu-ray, but it was just announced that it is indeed going to be brought to Blu-ray by the Screen Factory. So kudos to them. Just presenting, here's Clive Barker presenting his entire dark world. Beautifully disturbing creatures. Beautifully terrifying. He has a way of trying to help us see the beauty in terror, or the beauty in the grotesque. How to see the nuances of it all. I don't know. Good stuff. T2, again, for showing us a post-apocalyptic world. This apocalyptic world, this battle with the robots, which we'll see again, in later movies. But also, in this one in particular, for giving us the T-1000, which was just a very frightening, imposing technological marvel at the time, and to today. The combination of Robert Patrick's performance and the effects in this are just seamless, and it really creates this imposing figure. And the effects still hold up to the end till today. Timeless classic flick. If only it wasn't for Edward Furlong, but I digress. Naked Lunch, for finally bringing William S. Burroughs to the big screen in a very, very disturbing way. This is one of those movies that really, really disturbed me when I first saw it. I mean, the cover is disturbing. Look, the roaches stuck on it. It's got talking bugs in it. Well, giant bugs with talking rectums, rather. It's got giant bugs that also have typewriters for rectums. Bizarreness all through. You know, it's like something out of H.P. Lovecraft's worst nightmare by way of Salvador Dali. You know, and it's all turned around and jazzed up and, you know, brought through the lens of the Beat generation, I suppose. Now, I can't do any justice trying to describe it, but an amazing, disturbing, fantastical, horrific movie. All right, these next three all almost kind of go hand in hand. Dark City, The Matrix, and even Existenz, for just showing us a transient reality, you know, trying to help us see beneath the skin, so to speak, and all doing it in their own way. And also, you know, with The Matrix, for finally kind of bringing that cyberpunk stuff to the forefront and getting that whole subgenre and combining it with the crazy kung fu genre. I mean, it seemed like a real genre breath of fresh air. It has just a little bit more energy. Whereas something like, I think Existenz really is probably the better film. It's one where you go into it and you live through these journeys through these different realities, and yeah, it's good stuff. Again, imaginative, you know, that's why I had trouble with the title. Is it fantasy? Is it just imagination? Is it just about creativity? You know, all these things. Dark City. And you got Del Toro's Hellboy series. Just by visualizing, even though, you know, Hellboy itself draws on a lot of Lovecraftian Cthulhu mythos, and Hellboy 2 draws on a lot of, you know, Western fantasy tropes, like, you know, dark elves and trolls and goblins and that sort of thing. You know, I think they both deserve credit for just doing it in the excess that they do it. You know, it's very unbridled. It does not hold back at all, and at times perhaps it goes overboard, but, you know, hey, we need somebody like Del Toro that does that, that's not afraid to go overboard. He's not afraid to say, hey, maybe this is too much, I should hold back, because otherwise everything we get would just be this middle of the road pablum. Takes no chances. Mirror Mask, from the mind of Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean, most famous for their collaborations on Sandman and, well, specifically, I guess, the Black Orchid miniseries with those two. That's where they first worked together. But this is McKean's designed and directed film, and Gaiman's script, and it's just amazing. It's everything that those films like Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal were in the 80s, you know, remade for today. It's a real fantasy, a real fairy tale. Just amazing breath of fresh air. More Del Toro, of course. Pan's Labyrinth. Again, you know, looking at Del Toro stuff, some of it you go, oh, well, it's not original, this or that. You know, he has a way of taking all these old tropes and reimagining them or representing them or just rebranding them for a new age and making them look new and both, you know, old at the same time, if that makes any kind of sense whatsoever. But so in a way, you know, his works are very, very original and imaginative, but you have to understand that every story has been told in one way or another. It's just how they tell it and how they brand their personal touch to it that makes it set apart from the rest. Stardust, here's another movie that just completely flew under the radar, and this one's much closer to a typical fantasy than even Pan's Labyrinth or Mirror Mask, but it has enough slight left turns within that genre to just make it fun and really smart and seem really new and hip and energetic and exciting, from the ghost of the dead princes to, you know, the flying airship piloted by Robert De Niro, of all people, who is not one of his greatest performances, but the rest of the movie is so much fun. Highly, highly recommend it. Actually, now here's one I'm going to hold back because I haven't seen it, so I just need to get a good copy of it. Here's one I have, though. Scott Pilgrim, the way it just combines everything from Bollywood musical to fighting video games to the modern, internet generation. Scott Pilgrim versus the world. Hey, that should be the title of my vlogs at times. Streebo versus the world. But, we're not here to dredge up rivalries or, burning ambitions or whatnot. We are talking about imaginative, creative works. Movies that really take a chance. And Scott Pilgrim, here you go. You see complete and total failure at the box office. But apparently went on to make at least a pretty penny in the DVD and Blu-ray market. I mean, I'm always seeing new versions of the Blu-ray come out, like the recent Steelbooks at Walmart. Scott Pilgrim was one of them, so it's definitely found its audience on the shelves, at least. But it's just, what I always lament is the fact that audiences don't want more original creative works. Here's one of my favorite, Prometheus. Now everybody's going to be like, oh, Prometheus is another ripoff, but I like the way that it tries to go that 2001 route and say, what if we met our creators and perhaps they weren't anything more than just traveling spacemen that were experimenting and had no answers of their own, What if we did finally meet up with them? I love how it takes all the old Eric von Daniken mythologies and hypotheses of ancient astronauts and tries to present it in the modern science fiction tale, but also does it with this kind of roller coaster ride, pulp fiction, adventure sensibility to it, where all kinds of zaniness occurs along the way, making it a very fun ride. And then my last pick, and the pick for Best Fantasy from MVP Mutant Radio for last year, Cloud Atlas, just the way that it dared in telling all these simultaneous stories that happen not only across different worlds, but across different timelines, across different universes, and combines it all into one narrative. One of my favorites. Now, the one I didn't show you was The Fountain, because I haven't watched it yet, because you can see it's full screen. I got this copy, I think, for $2, but I haven't watched it because it's full screen. I hate full screen. I wanted to perhaps try to watch it on Netflix first, but it's not streaming on there, and I didn't want to blind buy it as a Blu-ray unless I got it at a really good deal. I'm a cheapskate like that. So I haven't seen The Fountain. I want to see it. But I want to see it right. I don't want my first experience to be full screen, standard definition. Even with my Blu-ray up converter, It'll make it look as good as it can, but, I'm sure I left a ton of movies out that pissed some people off. There are some others that I would have included, like Videodrome or Big Trouble in Little China. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. If I had good copies of more foreign films, like maybe Solaris or some of the Hong Kong stuff, like Zoo, Warriors from Magic Mountain, or The Bride with White Hair, I might have shared some of those. But I got these old bootleg VHS of so many of these movies, so times they are a-changing. I've got to just come across a good DVD and Blu-ray copy, and some of those, they just don't have them on Blu-ray now, and for a long time, the DVD copies were bad conversions of VHS, which I already had, so why buy them? But anyway, I hope you all enjoy your Sunday afternoon. Here's to you. This is Streebo, spreading the love from the land of MVP and Mutantville.com. If you enjoyed any of this film discussion, follow us on the MVP blog at www.mutantville.com, or on the Twitter machine at MVPLAYERS, or you can follow me personally at JTMCROBERTS. We are on Facebook at Mutantville Productions. If you're on iTunes, you can find MVP Mutant Radio. We've got all kinds of crazy stuff coming up. Pay attention and stay tuned for our announcement of our fantastic Fandom Fest MVP movie pack. Yes, it's going to be a limited time offer, which we're going to announce very, very soon. So I don't want to spill the beans on that yet. But anyway, this is Streebo. Peace. Streebo loves you, babe.